at the Kitchen Studios. This is the Pencil Pushers Podcast.
Welcome, Leadheads. This is the Pencil Pushers Podcast, and I'm your host, Mike Rosado. Today, we talk with my friend David Eichenberger, one of Raleigh, NC's celebrated illustrators and muralists. David is another one of those great artists who I admire and secretly envy with his beautifully surrealistic storybook style and his daringness to go big with large-scale painting projects that decorate our downtown high-rise buildings. I'm excited to spend the next hour picking his brain with you all, so let's dive right in. Hello, David. How are you?
Hello.
Awesome.
How are you?
Awesome, man. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Yeah.
On this rainy downpour of a night we got here.
Yeah, get rid of the pollen.
So listen, man, we have definitely hung out on a number of occasions with a group of other illustrators and graphic artists, and now I get a chance to kind of pick your brain on your career and how you got started and what's happening next. So let's kind of dive right in from the beginning. Where did you kind of get started with art?
Oh, do you want to go back to the beginning?
Go
back.
Go back.
Well, both my majority of my family are artists, graphic designers, or creative types. My grandmother was a professor at NC State, Betty Adams, and then she later became the dean of the department of the painting department. My grandfather was a graphic designer and a graphic designer professor at NC State for a number of years during the Kemp Hefner days.
When was that?
Late 60s, early 70s.
Okay.
And then my dad had a degree in industrial design and then actually parlayed it into, I guess it's not really the correct term, dropped it completely and then became a writer. And then my mom was a graphic designer over at NC State for 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you have a pretty deep lineage there.
Yeah.
And your grandmother was actually a pretty big part of your upbringing in the arts, right?
Yeah. She had a huge influence on me. She would, every year, she'd give me some sort of art like material, like sketchbooks, painting supplies, oil paint.
Was this was it something that you were kind of gravitating towards already?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
She recognized it. I mean, I wasn't the type that drew on walls or anything like that, but I definitely drew a lot. A lot of sci-fi, fantasy stuff, a lot of spaceships, and I think any sort of average thing that kids do, but I just did a lot of it. And then...
like how early are you talking about, like 7, 8, or 9, or...?
Well, so there's this story, but I think it was because I'm a great mimicker, but there's a story saying that when I was about 3, that I came home from preschool, maybe even a little bit older. I came home from preschool and I drew a Christmas tree with presents, but I drew it in overlapping. And like the teachers at the preschool were flipping out because...
That you had...
Yeah, you don't develop that kind of stuff until you're a little bit older. You're
like some sort of savant.
Yeah. But it turns out it's just because I was mimicking probably my dad or my grandmother. Just drawing stuff that, like, I also drew in perspective at early age, and it's pretty unheard of. But knowing how I am now, if I see something, I'll remember it and I'll draw it.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you're this really kind of cranked up very, very early on, much earlier than me. So 3, 4 years old, then we start moving into 9 or 10 years old. This is where you start to get a little bit more of a push encouragement from your family.
Yeah, I got it from, definitely from grandma. And then also in, I guess that's middle school. No, this is in elementary school.
Yeah, it's still 3rd or 4th grade or something.
Yeah. Yeah, just constant encouragement and having a pretty early decision. That's kind of what I wanted to be.
Really?
Yeah.
At what age?
Probably about 10.
Okay.
I wanted to be an artist.
Yeah. But you didn't know at this point what kind of artist?
No, I was just just a general artist. It wasn't until college that I actually kind of decided I wanted to be an illustrator. But but throughout that middle school,
So in middle school, you start actually going to art classes.
Yeah.
Right. So did you start getting encouragement from?
Well, that was when I first painted my first mural. Was in middle school. We had Dr. TC.
Where was this?
It was at Ligon.
Okay. Right down the street.
Yeah, right down the street. I'm actually like I live right around the corner from it. So it's kind of a trip.
Nice.
Dr. TC had this class.
Was that literally his name? That's what you called him?
No, Mrs. It was a female.
Oh, her.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Mrs. Dr. TC.
Mrs. Dr. TC?
No, she was Dr. TC. She was great. She had a class that was only, I guess, offered to the more experienced students, but it was an elective, and it was a mural class.
Was it 6th grade, 7th grade?
8th grade.
Okay.
Yeah. She got permission from the school at the end of the semester after we spent, semester learning how to enlarge murals through a grid system. And various techniques, cartooning, which is an early form of transferring images onto a wall with carbon sheets or homemade carbon sheeting.
Homemade carbon sheeting. I don't think I'm familiar with that. Just if you don't mind me asking, how do you do that?
That's you use charcoal or graphite.
Oh yeah, and you just
the back of a piece of paper.
Yeah, right. Gotcha.
And then you can just transfer the image that way.
Yep.
She got permission from the school, and school let us go paint murals.
And where was that?
It was in the Ligon, Hall of Ligon.
Okay.
Yeah, in the halls. So I ended up doing a couple, it's the various entrances around Ligon. I did one at the gymnasium.
Oh, wow.
But it was very much inspired by MC Esher. I had an early obsession with him because my grandmother, she gave me a calendar and a couple of books.
So did that get you pretty excited at that point, or?
Well, yeah, it got me excited because it was just I never really did well in school, and I never really got much attention because of that. And then finally I got some sort of attention.
Right. All the girls just came flooding at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish. You hear about Picasso, and I'm like, what happened? But yeah, and it was actually my first introduction to crowdsourcing material. I had to get reference drawings of other people's hands and skin tones, and because I'm an 8-year-old kid, I'm just used to drawing my own hand and my own flesh color. And then because we were pretty prominently, we had a really diverse class, and
in terms of students.
Yeah, in terms of students, yeah, and I had to figure out a way to represent them all. You know, and like, how do we represent?
Was that something that just came naturally, or did your teacher encourage that, or?
It just kind of came. It was a little bit encouraging.
Or was that part of the theme of the?
No, it came from students and just kind of come up and talk to me, and it sort of made me realize that I was like, not just there's multiple. There's not just one person that goes to this school. It's many different people.
Yeah.
So we ended up doing different colors for the hands around Ligon. It was kind of a eye-opening experience. Race relations and introduction to that.
Awesome. So that was kind of like your first big project that you worked on, and then so then what happened in high school? Did that just kind of continue? Were you like, I need to keep doing these kinds of large scale art pieces, or?
No, I ended up learning about oil painting. I took a couple classes from Miss Vaughn. She was an avid oil painter and watercolorist, and so she taught me a lot about watercoloring and oil painting. And
this is high school?
Yeah, it was high school. Also around the same time, I was taking life drawing classes with my grandmother.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, from...
you lucky dog.
14, going to life drawing classes. And one of the things that my grandmother really wanted me to understand was human form. So, and she knew that I had an already strong talent, and she really wanted to, make it prosper and sort of, encourage something that I was really enjoyed.
What was the difference between your art relationship between your grandmother and your mom? Because your mom was obviously, she was a graphic designer, but she also was trying to encourage you to get into animation, right?
Yeah, well, we both had a real love of animation. I used to get up early and watch Saturday morning cartoons, and she really loved the old, what was his name? The guy who did the old Superman movies.
Yeah, Fleischer.
Fleischer, yeah. And there was one particular birthday, like it was kind of eye-opening for me. It was she'd rented old Superman reel to reel, along with the projector from.
Oh my God! I wish I could do that now.
Yeah, it was great.
Those are so good. They're so beautifully
good.
animated.
So good. Yeah, the rotoscoping and the robots.
Yeah.
There's one in particular. Like thank God for YouTube.
Yeah.
Do yourself a favor. Just go on YouTube, type in Fleischer. Superman cartoons.
Unbelievable.
And it's phenomenal.
Beautifully animated. And you got the rotoscoping aspect, which for those who aren't familiar, rotoscoping is literally, for the most part, it is tracing an actor, a filmed actor who performs the scene, and then somebody goes over top, an artist goes over top and draws it with the characters. Kind of similar to how
a lot of Disney movies.
CG.
Really.
Actually, Disney used references. They didn't do rotoscoping, but
no CGI. Yeah,
CGI. Same thing. Or when they have the actors with all the dots on them. I forget what you call it right now, but anyway, yeah, similar to that. Yeah. But aside from the beauty of the animation itself, the design was spectacular.
Yeah.
I mean, even the color contrast and everything, just gorgeous.
Yeah, like a masterclass in color theory.
It really is.
And relationship. Yeah, she just saw, like, I had such an obsession with cartoons that she kind of thought that maybe I should go into it in college and get a degree in it. And I went to, before I toured SCAD, I went to, I guess my junior year in high school, I went to the, it's called the Circus now, but it was at art school in Raleigh.
It's called the Circus now?
Yeah, I think it's called the Circus, or it's something, I can't remember the name of it. It's out in Wake Forest.
With tightrope and
no, we'll figure it out later. I went in and took a tour of it, and the animation department was just very kind of dark and quiet place.
Right.
And then I talked to some of the animators, and they mentioned something about 60, 70 plus hours a week.
Yeah. This is hand drawn?
Hand drawn, early computer animation.
No
all
way.
sorts of stuff. Yeah.
Wow.
This predates Toy Story, so it was early.
It wasn't communication art.
Yeah.
Something
I think it was communication art.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
In that
School of Communication Arts.
Yeah, that did not appeal to me.
Right.
The idea of sitting in
they look miserable.
Sitting in a dark room for 60 plus hours.
Yeah.
I was like, if I become a painter, I could at least have open windows in a studio.
Yeah.
Yeah, and looking back on it, I kind of regret it, but not really.
Regret not going into animation?
A little bit,
Yeah. Such an amazing art form.
It is. It really is, and the amount of stuff that's out now is just phenomenal.
We should take some classes together.
We should.
Yeah. That was what I wanted to do for the longest time. That's what I wanted to be a Disney animator.
That's what got you in the SCAD too?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I took a tour of Ringling when I was down there, and they had a huge animation department.
Oh yeah, it was way better than SCAD.
Yeah,
SCAD, the main thing they had is life, that's us flying to Ringling. Just imagine. But no, I mean, Ringling actually had a true dedicated animation department, and they were also connected with when Disney brought their studio to Florida. They were connected with Ringling to help source where Disney had Cal Arts. Yeah. Which is a huge film school over there, with a very, very strong animation department. When they moved a division into I think it was Orlando. Yeah. Ringling was a big it was like the Cal Arts of the East Coast for them. Yeah.
Yeah, almost didn't apply there, but really considered it. It wasn't. I just kind of
SCAD was the one I went with because they were the only ones that would let me. My grades were so bad.
Same here. Yeah, it was
They were like, "Yeah, you have money, we'll take you."
Yeah, we'll take all your money.
Right, take all your money. Yeah, they're still taking my money.
That's right. Yeah, no, it was the same thing that happened with me. I applied to Chicago Institute of the Art and then MICA, Maryland Institute College of Art.
RISD too, no, right?
Yeah, RISD.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, got accepted all of them. The only one that gave me money was SCAD. I got a scholarship from I won a painting award called the Congressional Art Award. They took me up to D.C. and took photos with a bunch of senators and in the application room. Well, not the application. We were in, I guess it was the registrar's office, applying to SCAD or at least dropping off all of our papers for the work. They were kind of going over possible programs that we could, follow through with student assistance, financial assistance. And they're like, "Oh, you won the Congressional Art Award. Means you're eligible for the Kaya Scholarship." I was like, "All right,
sure.
Well, let's go to SCAD because this is the only one that's giving me money." Everything else is like, just it was a pipe dream, absolute pipe dream.
Yeah.
The amount of money that was going towards art school.
Yeah, and it's actually like twice as much now as it was back then.
Yeah,
it's insane. It's almost $40,000 a year or something like that. It's crazy.
I can't. Yeah, it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. So I was reading that you studied a summer in France with Ben Long. Is that right? So I was reading that and I said, Ben Long. That guy used to work with Chuck Kapsner. And Chuck Kapsner is a guy that I studied with in high school who was another fresco painter. He came to our art school or art class at Broughton High. And
wait, you're from Raleigh too?
Yeah, it's crazy.
I never knew that about you.
Yeah. So much to talk about, man. But
we always just talk about illustration.
I know, right? And drawing doodles and stuff, getting in trouble and shit. But yeah, Chuck Kapsner, he was a fresco painter who somehow knew our art teacher and came by and showed us how to draw the human form more traditionally and took a couple of the key students that were really had shown a specific talent for life drawing and allowed us to go to take special classes, night classes at Meredith College.
Oh, wow.
Where we would, draw the human form, which was incredible because it was naked girls. So it was definitely a positive and a learning experience.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, so Chuck Kapsner used to work quite a lot with Ben Long.
The name sounds
so
familiar.
I saw his name and I was like, oh my God, that's amazing that you were able to.
What year was this?
Well, this is in high school, so it was 2009. No, it was back in the early 90s. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was when I guess Chuck was probably working with Ben. Did he do the Wachovia Bank?
I think so. Yeah, in Charlotte. That's right. Yep. So they worked on that together.
So Chuck
and maybe another guy. I think it was three artists.
Janet Link was a part of that.
Okay.
Another huge influence.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Ben. Yeah, I got to study with him.
That's amazing.
We tried to work it out as an internship, and it was going to be for college credit. Never got passed, but I got to spend a month in the south of France.
That's amazing. What was that experience like?
The first week was kind of weird. I'm like, I've met this guy for all.
Did they cherry pick you, or did you apply?
No, it goes back. It was a family connection. My mom was really good friends with Chris Quinn, and Chris Quinn is a former student of Ben Long, but Chris Quinn is also a fantastic painter. He's a luthier, makes guitars now, but also
luthier.
But also makes is a fantastic painter. His sister Ella was married to Ben.
Okay,
and So my mom, being very supportive of me, knew this and took full advantage of it.
Nice.
And got a meeting with Ben and Ella, and organized a month-long internship.
Amazing.
So work with Ben while he was working on a mural. I think it ended up going on a church outside of Boone, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Montpelier.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Montpelier?
No, Montpelier, North Carolina. There's like I wish I had better memory about that stuff. It was he had financial backing from a church and then a private donor and all this stuff, and he was just working on the preliminary drawing. So we got up every day, and we would go to the countryside. Wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and he was like, "You have to do this. Like, there's no sleeping in. You get up. Breakfast is at like 6:30."
How old were you?
19.
Wow.
Yeah, freshman year.
Amazing.
Between freshman and sophomore year. It was a phenomenal experience. It was just, the first week was just kind of absolute culture shock. I mean, to go from, Raleigh wasn't that big, and neither was Savannah, but Fossack was like Fuquay Arena from 30 years ago. I mean, it was like 30 people that lived in the entire town, and the closest big city was Nice, and that was like maybe 45 minutes away. It was middle of nowhere.
Did you speak any French?
Nope.
Oui.
Not even a little. Which is, as a semi-cultured American, it's kind of embarrassing when you go overseas and you're like,
And they speak like 3 or 4 languages.
yeah, like teenagers,
Right.
and you're like, hey,
Right. Baguette.
Poisson, poisson. It was real bad. But then, after a couple of weeks, it was great. I mean, every morning got up, had, the freshest cheese and eggs, and they go paint in the countryside. I did a bunch of watercolors.
It's just like plein air type stuff? Or?
Yeah, plein air type stuff.
Yeah.
And then to capture a good light, he would have you come in at 9. We'd have a live model. We'd draw from 9 until about, probably about 8 until about 11, and then we'd break for lunch, and then wait till about 3 o'clock to get back together.
How many students?
Well, that was the thing. That was sort of like his debut into that idea. I was his guinea pig.
So it's just you and him?
It was me, him, and this other guy, John,
Wow.
who was his assistant. Not his assistant, but like his...
like an apprentice?
Yeah,
or?
an apprentice, yeah. How much time do we have? Because I have a really interesting story about that.
Tell it.
Okay. Growing up, well, finally, in high school, I found out about Toulouse Lautrec. And I don't know if you know who Toulouse Lautrec is, or your viewers do, but check him out. French painter.
Yeah.
He did can dance paintings.
Yeah.
Lots of...
He had some sort of debilitating disease as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did the Moulin Rouge poster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he suffered from a form of dwarfism.
Mm-hmm. He walked with a cane, too?
Walked with a cane.
Right.
Big nose.
Yeah.
So we go to visit Ben, and during the interview process, he finds out that I'm a huge fan of Toulouse-Lautrec. He's like, oh, I used to own Toulouse-Lautrec's apartment.
What?
I was like, what? It's crazy. It's crazy. I was just flabbergasted. And so, and that was it. That's all he said. I used to own Toulouse-Lautrec's apartment. It's like, okay, cool.
Can you tell me more?
Yeah. And that way, it was literally like, then the interview was over, and they're like, all right, we're going to go to France. Cool.
Oh, my God.
And so, just kind of left reeling, forgot about it. A couple of months go by. Actually, almost a full year. We interviewed him, towards the beginning of my freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
And then we didn't, and then we kind of got back to it my freshman, sophomore year, between my freshman and sophomore year. So I go visit him, and the last 3 days, I wanted to go to Paris, because he flew into Paris, and then you had to take a train down to Fossack, and then you had to take the train back. But I never got a chance. I never had a chance to go to Paris. So he's like, just go. We'll stay with this German couple that I know. One of them's German, the other one's American. They're about to move out of the apartment, but you got. They said that you can crash on their couch. Great, that's awesome. What a great opportunity. We get there, and I take the cab, and I'm trying to pronounce the street name, Rue Coulancourt. 22 Rue Coulancourt Road. And finally, the cabbie just gets so frustrated. He's like in the broken English, let me see the paper. And in the paper, he's like, drives me over there, drops me off. Pretty exhausted. It was like an 8-hour train ride from south, even though it was like a speed train.
Yeah. Go
to bed, wake up the next day, and the hosts were like, hey, we're in the process of, kind of boxing. Here's a key, the Louvre is south. Here's a map. Go figure it out. Okay, cool. And I'm walking down the main road, and like, I looked to the left, and I could see the top half of Moulin Rouge, but I didn't know what it was. I just saw a windmill. But I knew it was like, well, I have to go check that. What is this? What is this windmill thing? So I come around the corner, and there's the Moulin Rouge. I'm like, holy shit. So fucking Toulouse Lautrec.
This is in Montmartre, right?
No, this is in Paris.
Yeah, in Paris, but I went to Paris like 10 years ago and stayed like 10 blocks from that spot. It was amazing.
Well, your memory's a lot better. I wrote a paper report about it. So I remember anything.
Right.
So, and then like to the next is there's a cemetery, Edgar Degas's body's entombed in there.
Oh, wow.
A couple other people. And I don't think anything of it. I go check out Moulin Rouge, walk by. I walked all day long. I walked all the way down to the Louvre. And that was several miles.
Yeah.
Just exhausted to get back the next day. Do the kind of same thing the next day, and then finally, like, my plane leaves. And I go, and I get home, and my sophomore year, I take an art history class, and I was like, I'm going to write about Toulouse. Let's, let's do some research on him. I'm doing all this research. And I look it up, and his address is 22 Rue Coulancourt.
Oh, my God.
I stayed in his fucking apartment.
Wow.
Ben never told me that he gave it
to that couple.
He sold it to that couple.
Oh,
or rented it out to that
God.
couple. I had no idea. I mean, it's probably for the better. I would have never left.
Yeah.
I just would have been smelling the floors and hanging out in the hallway and just...
That's not for the better. It's not for the better at all.
Yeah,
Ben, shame on you.
Yeah, it was crazy. I was just like, I can't believe... I mean, I should have put it together.
Wow.
I should have put it together.
What was it like in there?
Vastly different from the movie.
Yeah, I don't remember the movie.
Oh, the horrible...
John Leguizamo played it, right?
Yeah. When he was walking around on his knees.
But it was cool? It was a cool place?
It was awesome. It was amazing. High ceilings, lots of light, wooden floors, plaster walls. Like...
Yeah. Classic. Yeah.
It was a little rundown, but I mean, hey, it was how old?
Yeah, exactly. A couple hundred probably.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Older than anything we can imagine here in the States.
Yeah. So let's fast forward a little bit. So we finished college, come back to Raleigh, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And what was on your mind at this point? Were you thinking, okay, I'm going to try and be an independent artist, or did you say, well, I'm just going to...
I think originally it was just to be somewhere safe. No, it was just to try. I knew Raleigh was kind of up and coming, and I always enjoyed Raleigh. And I was like, I could go to New York.
When did you come back?
2001.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, 2001.
Did you not notice a big difference? Because that was the case for me when I came back to Raleigh. I was like...
No, it was... I mean, there was rumblings, There was like a little bit of change. I think, Mayor Meeker just maybe started serving his second term or something like that. And Raleigh was just starting to... It felt different.
Yeah.
It didn't like... I'd run into a couple of people and they're like, oh, yeah, we moved... Like strangers. Like, oh, we came through Raleigh. We're in a band. Came through Raleigh. Really liked the vibe of it. And then, they stuck around. And this is when I already moved back. And didn't really notice it. I just kind of wanted a spot where I could go and sort of collect my thoughts. Yeah. And sort of regroup. And maybe I did a couple trips up to New York to try to find jobs up there.
Yeah, maybe bounce off to...
Yeah, just kind of a landing pad and then take off. And...
Because right around that time, I mean, I started to notice that there were a lot of art galleries popping up everywhere.
Well, there always kind of had been.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe I just wasn't in my lane at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty involved in the art scene before I left. So, I mean, we had the early versions of the Contemporary Art Museum. Was over by where Tiernan Og's now, or it was. Art Space was, at maybe 10 years into its opening. You had a couple other spaces that were showing work. You still had, I think Lee Hansley had been open. There had been some things, but but not much, but some things. And then, but that wasn't even on my radar when I got back. Was art galleries. It was just like, let's try to do this illustration thing. And
as an independent,
wasn't really working. And so then I became interested in the art gallery situation, and had one of my first shows was actually through Gamil Design. With
Design Box.
Yeah,
Ali Khalifa.
Yeah, Ali Khalifa and all those guys are there.
Ali Khalifa, for those that don't know, is a fantastic industrial designer.
Yeah. He gave me a space. Actually, I should take that back. I take it back. I had a spot over at, where was I when I first moved back? I think it was where we had like a group show with some SCAD graduates where House of Swank is now, that old Coca-Cola distribution area.
So did you already have a group of art that you were ready to present, or did you develop a series and then present to...
No, I was just... Whatever, I had a day job where I was working at like a sign shop, and I was just making like... these little dogs that we call them, DAWGS, and it was an old wooden cutout from yard art that my grandmother on my mom's side used to have. It was this Boston Terrier, and we'd make basically weird folk art with it. But I would, like, my mom would glue stuff to it, and then I kind of took it and started doing my illustrations on top of it, and did this whole series of dogs. And I got Kurt Adams over at, when he was running the gallery space over at Father and Son, gave me my first show, and I just did a series of dogs. And then I had a show over at Camille Design.
And did you, how did you break into that? I mean, did you already know these people ahead of time? I mean...
No.
You just started circling around all the different art galleries and meeting people and essentially networking.
Yeah, just being in the scene.
And it was super intentional at that point. Were you like?
No, it was super casual. It was just taking advantage of the situation.
Yeah.
And there were some people that already kind of like laid the groundwork. But that Nicole Welch, I'd become friends with, and she, for a long time, was the director of, over at CAM, but not director at CAM. Sorry, I take that back. She was the K through 12, design school director.
Okay.
She was already involved in the art scene, and then we became friends with a couple other people, and so I just kind of got wrapped up into that, and then sort of took off from there. But it was very like small group of young artists that were trying to make their own way and
banded together.
Yeah, we just got like a school of fish. Really. Let's not get preyed upon
like a gang of riffraff.
Yeah. Stuart Allen was another one. I think he's a SCAD graduate.
Okay.
A couple other people. Keith Norville, Anna Padres.
Yeah. Keith went to SCAD too, right?
Yeah, we were in school together. Anna and I had introduction to like drawing together. So yeah, we just kind of started just to try to do as much as possible.
As I said in the intro, you definitely have a very storybook illustration style that has a definite sense of surrealism to it. How did that develop?
That pretty much came from my sophomore year in college. I was introduced to the Juxtapose magazine, and on the cover was Mark Ryden. And I thought it was just his paintings were the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I was just absolutely floored.
Did that change your style dramatically moving as soon as you saw that? What was your work like before?
Kind of traditional, very impressionistic, very classic, like portraits of people.
Yeah.
It was sort of an extension of what I was doing when I was a
Not
kid.
necessarily having a story behind it or anything like that. Yeah.
No story. It was it's sort of what school just sort of teaches you, the basics.
Were you thinking at that time before you were exposed to juxtapose, right? Is that what it's called?
Well, I mean, it kind of came from.
I mean, did you have an intention, or at the time before that had happened, before you had seen that cover art, did you know that you were searching for a style or a creative direction at that point, or?
Yeah, I was getting kind of frustrated. You know, I was just like, I'm never going to make my way or make a name for myself by painting stuff that artists did 120 years ago. You know?
What was it about his that was so, I mean, because obviously at this point you're in you're probably 19, 20 years old, and you'd been doing art your entire life. I mean, what was it? What was it that was so special about his work?
Well, it was just I think it was a blend of classic and new stuff. You know, it was his work is deeply rooted in traditional techniques. You know, he's doing underpaintings, glazes, classic. I mean, in a sense of like idealistic sort of the Carl Jung kind of archetype kind of thing going on. You know, like he has this very fantastical woman that he always kind of shows up in his work, and it appealed to that classic style that I enjoyed very much, but then also like something that I kind of wanted to like break free from, and I was just kind of floored by it, just his detail and his storytelling.
What's his name again?
Mark Ryden.
Mark Ryden. I have to check him out.
Rydan. Mark Ryden. Yeah, and it was for the first year, it was definitely very similar to his. Lots of robots and stuff.
Yeah,
but that was always kind of an extension of what I was drawing when I was a little kid. It was just sort of that, and then later it directed more towards nature, because that was something that I always, even as a little kid, was immersed myself in.
Wildlife in general.
Yeah, wildlife in general. Done a lot of camping growing up with my mom and stuff like that, and always fascinated by birds and bird books and like, you know, Audubon.
Was that ever a thought that might be a direction for you?
A little bit.
Yeah.
There was at some point. I spent a lot of time at the beach growing up. Becoming a marine biologist, I always thought it would be kind of fun. So that shows up every once in a while. Sort of the coral clusters and various types of fish and octopus. Octopus show up a lot in my work. If I don't know what to draw, I'll just draw an octopus.
I just recently saw the Robert Altman film. I like starting it out by saying a Robert Altman film
because shows you like how much you are.
Yeah.
Like,
well, the reason I say that is because people typically like chastise this movie, but Popeye.
Oh yeah, with Robin Williams. And what's her name from The Shining?
Shelley Duvall.
Shelley Duvall.
It's a fantastic movie, but it's got the most ridiculous fight scene at the end with this octopus that looks like it was literally made out of, garden hoses. It was really bad, but yeah, it just makes me think of that every single time. But so you break into the local scene, and at this point you're essentially networking and finding a good group of people that you can start doing shows with. And what was at this point, did you still have, what was your kind of goal at that point? Were you just trying to do hung art, or were you trying to get into magazines, or what was?
I was just doing hung art. Is all I really could focus on at the time. I still had a day job. I still have a day job. But the idea of like trying to correspond with art directors and stuff like that just seemed like kind of out of the question unless I had every amount of time to sort of apply it, constant communication.
Was that because you didn't want somebody fucking with your art, or was it just?
I was a little bit. I was kind of scared.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I had to offer. I didn't know what my voice was, and I was still trying to figure it out. And I didn't really want to go through the process of having to just make really bad illustrations or something I wasn't happy with.
Then you've got somebody like Rydell, right?
Ryden,
who obviously was doing that same thing. So you were inspired by his artwork, but not by the direction that he chose to apply his artwork. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean his stuff. it wasn't showing up in like, Sears and Roebuck catalogs, or it wasn't showing up in the average space. Like it was showing up in Rolling Stone.
Sure, that's my point.
Yeah,
really,
yeah.
is did you ever think that maybe I could lean towards these more kind of alternative type magazine outlets?
No, I wasn't really thinking about it.
Yeah,
it was just kind of just doing studio art and wall art.
Cool. So, would you call yourself an illustrator or more of a fine artist?
I call
painter?
myself an illustrator now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you define the difference?
Oh, I've never been asked that before. Never actually thought about it. I guess it comes down to the narrative of what you're trying to paint. Sometimes when you do fine art, you kind of think of the traditional beautiful image. It's very kind of serene, quiet. Whereas illustration can be disruptive and loud, and can tell a story. Yeah, and in one image can tell a whole story.
Right.
You're not
but those rules have been broken quite a bit. In the past 25 years or so. I mean, you got painters who are doing wildly controversial works that definitely aren't serene by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
but
then they would wind up calling themselves painters. I don't know. It's just a weird. It's like I feel like illustrator. When you think of like an illustrator, you think of somebody who's more like a pop artist or a commercial artist of some sort. But it's such a fine line. I mean, you think about somebody like as serene and clearly classical in a lot of ways, like Norman Rockwell was always looked down upon by the art world as somebody who was, not a fine artist.
Well, I always thought it was because he was the commercial aspect of it.
He
was doing it for the paycheck.
Yeah,
and not necessarily as like.
It didn't have anything to do with
turmoil that I have burning inside my body that needs to be released only through slashes of red color across the canvas. Like everybody's got turmoil, man. Just
just calm it down, man. Yeah, exactly. And at what point did you start thinking that this could actually be a thing? And what were the challenges that kind of came along with that?
Making money off my work?
Yeah, exactly. Where you could actually make that make it sustainable, I guess you could say.
I think when I was 26, and I had a first.
You were 26 years old?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I had my first out-of-state show, and I sold a painting of Big Lebowski. It was for a group theme show, and I did a picture of the Big Lebowski floating on a rug holding mixed drinks. And it sold like the night before the actual opening.
Oh, wow.
And it was, I took a trip out to LA. I didn't even know. I was just like, hey, we got a first show. Let's go out to LA. Go out to LA. And it's like, seeing a group of artists that, like, I had a show with, they call him, his street name's Crayola, but I think it's Jeff Skims. He's huge. He was, one of his paintings was like featured in a movie recently. There's another guy, I can't remember his name, but he always paints these just disgustingly, ugly rabbits and stuff like that, and like sort of these pus field drawings. And his painting was in the end of it, as we know, it's like that weird. Same guys who did Pineapple Express. Okay. And his paintings were in there, but this was way before that. I was having a show and these guys were in there. Wow. I had seen them in Juxtapose. I had, they had been on other various illustration magazines. I was just like, I just sold a painting. That guy sold a painting. What am I doing? Like, let's try to do this for real. And I started just really trying to go after it.
And you're working part-time at this point?
Yeah, I always worked part-time. It was a lot of sacrifice.
How do you let's talk a little bit about the sacrifice. I mean, I'm really curious. I mean, how do you make that decision, and what is it that you actually do to make sure that you're sustaining yourself and able to pay bills? And
I have a day job.
yeah, was it full time though, or?
Yeah, it was full time. I worked. I did faux finishing for about 7 years. Then I worked for this guy Matt McConnell for another 7 years.
Okay.
And I'm currently working at the Art Museum as a carpenter. That was sort of like my reintroduction to murals. And we would travel up and down the East Coast doing murals and faux finishing and stuff.
Uh-huh.
He taught me the hustle. Like, you have to just do it. You have to just do it.
And we're talking about Clark Hippolito, is there? Yeah.
Yeah. You know, he was...
How old were you at this point?
I think I was like 24.
Okay, so this is before.
Yeah, it was before the big
California,
show.
Right.
Of just, you know, like just doing the work. You know, you just got to put the work in.
Yeah.
And that's exactly, you know, what I got from him was just like the guy was always moving, always like never stopped moving. It was always just kind of on the go.
You still take that with you now?
I try to. I've dialed it back a little bit because, you know, I did for the double shift kind of thing for a long time, where I'd get off of work and then I'd go to the
Work
studio,
for 8 hours.
Work for 8 hours again.
Yeah.
And I didn't have much fun.
Reward.
Yeah, there was no reward. There was a lot of like, a lot of quiet nights hanging out in the studio, which is fine. But, you know, you just start doing that and you build up a reputation. You know, you start, people start asking for, you know, T-shirt designs, poster designs. And this is gradually kind of what happened. I did a lot of free stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of, like one of my more favorite things that I do now, and I still really don't make any money off of it, but as the poster art for the Great Cover-Up.
Yeah.
It's one of my most favorite things to do.
Yeah. For listeners not from Raleigh, North Carolina, the Great Cover-Up is something that happens at a music venue called King's, and it's a weekend filled, or is it one night? It's two nights. No, it's 3 nights now, isn't it?
No, 4 nights.
4 nights. Okay.
It started off as a weekend. No, 3 nights.
Yeah.
And then it became 4 nights.
Yeah, four nights basically of local musicians who get together, not necessarily in bands together. They just form bands.
Supergroups.
Yeah, they're supergroups where they do tribute shows of any particular famous band, basically.
Yeah. Like Ivan Kelly from the Rosebuds did some things years ago, at the very beginning of the Cover-Up.
Yeah, yeah. So you were in charge of doing. You were commissioned to do.
I was not commissioned. I said, I'm making these posters and I'm selling them, and you're letting me in for free. I started to make a list of demands. That's what happens when you start to get known a little bit more.
Right. List of demands, right? You start becoming just like a band person. You're like, no green M&Ms.
No, like you start building a reputation of people like, all right, yeah.
Yeah. So you're just pushing your way in. I mean, no,
yeah.
You know, not to be funny about it, but you were literally just saying, no, I'm going to, you know, I'm going to volunteer to do a poster for you guys. And yeah, so you're just taking the initiative.
Yeah.
Yep.
And sometimes I still do that now. Like, I mean, nothing came up of it, but I did a series of vans. It's on my Instagram feed. I did a series of vans that was modeled after various restaurants and businesses around Raleigh. And I kind of want to do something with that, you know, I want to make posters of it. But yeah, it was the same sort of mindset. Just like, oh, I'm going to do this and see what happens.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a part of this thing and see what happens.
Yeah.
I'll do T-shirts for Oaks and Pokes. Yeah, doing like T-shirts for them, and just designs in general. Just kind of constantly doing designs.
And again, that was you just approaching them.
No, actually, by this time it's actually them coming to me, asking.
And was that starting to happen more and more at this point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is, I mean, to be honest, like where I'm at now, as far as like recognition, has only grown in the last maybe like 6 years. I would probably be at in a different place if I maybe went full time. I did full time a couple of years ago, and it was real slow going. It was a real struggle. Like it was kind of a strain on multiple fronts, relationships and psyche. You know, it's tough. Running your own business. I mean,
Yeah, it is. I've had a business for 8 years, and it just took until recently for things to start really kind of turning around.
And I was in a situation when I couldn't foresee doing that for another 6 years and not be miserable.
So you saw 6 years of incline in terms of recognition, but a decrease in terms of your own sort of emotional kind of So how do you find that balance, do you think?
Well, for me, it comes down to financial. Like, I worry about money a lot, and it sucks. Like, it's real hard to have to constantly think about that, because it kind of takes away from my ability to be creative.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
definitely.
I gotta go find a job.
Yeah.
I gotta have a better, place to put my head at, a roof over my head. I don't have kids or a wife or anything like that, but it's something it's what my comfortable level, where I'd like my comfort level to be at.
Yeah.
In order to make good art, you know, like how, in order to feel safe, I have to, in order to make good art, I have to feel safe. And,
yeah, interesting how you find like a lot of artists feel like they have to do the exact opposite in order to make good art.
Yeah.
I've never really found that to be the case for me.
No. I mean, there are people out there that kind of thrive off the struggle, you know?
Yeah.
I know, a couple of people off the top of my head, they'll struggle so hard, and they'll, sell a couple paintings, 30 grand, like 6 months. I'm like,
maybe I should be struggling more.
They're also incredibly talented.
Right. Yeah.
And I wish I had an
nobody really talks
talent.
about that. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that was like, I mean, to be honest, I recognized that I didn't have that business aspect of it.
Yeah.
I didn't have the business mind.
Yeah. I was talking.
I have the doer mind. Like, I have the ability to, I'm going to do it. I'll bang this out in a couple hours. But like the negotiations, I'm ruined.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've talked about this ad nauseum for years, about, especially as a business owner myself, who, my background is in illustration, and I fell into graphic design because out of necessity, really.
Right.
And then I started my own business out of rebellion. And it took a long time for me to figure out how to even manage being entrepreneurial, having that sort of sensibility, having a business mind. And
it's a different mindset than drawing. I mean,
yeah, it is.
It's a creative, like, you can be creative on your business aspects of it. Like, you can get some really interesting things and make it your own. But when it comes down to, like, balancing things.
I think if I could give any young artist, or even, I don't care how old you are, to be honest. I mean, even if you're,
I'll take it.
Yeah. I mean, I think you should try to, get some sort of education in business.
Oh yeah.
And I've talked about this with other guests as well. We are in the business of being entrepreneurs. We are inherently driven to have a business by yourself. I mean, it's really you are your business, and it's just like being a business person, really. Somebody who wants to open up a bakery.
Yeah,
it's really not that different.
Yeah.
And it's a shame that more artists don't, or excuse me, more art schools don't require. I think that they should require a minor in business.
Yeah,
I really do.
For sure.
I mean, SCAD, what was their minor that you were required?
It was practically art history.
Art history. Yeah.
Like,
you were required to have an art history minor.
Yeah.
Instead, that really should be
just
business
major.
Yeah. I mean, because it's so critically important, and it's such the antithesis of what we as artists think about, that it doesn't make any sense, because we need to have that. It's the reason why we should have it, is because we don't think about it very often.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's kind of just a national problem in the first place. We don't really think about finances.
No. Yeah.
It's like, you got to get rich. Well, how do you get rich?
Right.
How do you make money? Well, we don't talk about that.
Yeah. So did as an artist, you saw all these other artists who, like you were saying, be self-sabotaging and then sell a painting for $30,000. I mean, did you look at other artists that were who were doing really well and think, how do I model my creative direction to not sacrifice the art, but to enhance my own well-being and also enhance the visibility of my artwork by...
Yeah. There's one guy out west, Jeff Soto. He teaches at like a community college.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's probably like, I don't know, one of the best illustrators. But he's sort of parlayed. He started off doing illustration work and then went into fine arts. And my dream artistic lifestyle, which is...
Why?
It's just kind of the best of everything.
Yeah.
He's got
the art teacher.
Teaches and he spreads his knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
He shares with other people, and he encourages and influences younger generation to try to be good artists or become better, or at least have an understanding. And then he's making posters for Primus and Clutch, and I mean, I'm not that big of a Primus fan, but if you were to ask high school me,
he'd be all about it, man.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I used to be a huge Primus fan. It's just like.
So is that kind of where you're headed at now?
I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, you've got the background. My gosh, your family history. You're meant to be.
I've taught
teaching.
a couple times. Yeah, I've taught a couple times. Did middle school over at Art Space. Done some high school stuff, just like week-long courses, watercolor and stuff like that. It's very nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's next?
Hopefully more murals.
Yeah.
That last big one I did was the Alamo Draft House, and then I did the inside bar.
Okay, we need to talk about that for a minute. It was a huge deal. I am a huge Alamo Draft House fan.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
I just want to say, big shout out to Alamo, because they reinvigorated my love for movies.
Yeah.
And for you to be a part of that is spectacular.
Yeah, it was a dream come true. I mean, it was just...
So how did you get that call?
Word of mouth.
Yeah.
Skip Eisner, Steve Popson both put in a word. Steve Popson was originally he was going to manage the Alamo, and then he ended up taking a teaching job. Then Skip Eisner, who was doing all the AV stuff, he's in charge of AV Geeks. He ended up taking over. But anyway, they both put separately, they both separately put in good words for me, because they had a communication with Tim League, and so then I got an email.
Is Tim League the
owner?
Okay, the owner.
Yeah,
okay,
the man.
Right.
And he contacted me directly. And
Tim did?
Yeah, just through email. And I was just like, why? Like, who? What? Oh, Alamo. I know about the Alamo. Why? And then like, wait, who owns
Stars at Night?
I was like,
Stars at Night are big and bright.
Deep in the heart of Texas. He like got in contact with me directly through email, and I was just kind of floored, because I was like, I knew what the Alamo was. I didn't know who Tim League was.
Right.
And then but I also knew what Mondo was. And I was like, holy crap, this is fucking Mondo. This is Tim League. This is Alamo Draft House. Don't fuck this up. And I got in contact with his like art director and the architect, and they kind of gave me the direction that they wanted to go in, and then gave me some imagery to work from. And I just kind of went into design mode.
How much creative freedom do you have for a project like that?
Well, it's always kind of fun, because like I kind of like working in a box, and so they gave me this little rectangle that I had to work in. They're like, we want it B-movie art, like B-movie stars. We don't want it overly sexual. We don't want it. We don't really want any sort of super famous people in there, which I found out later. The original, my first drawings, I had Mr. T in it. They're like, where did you get this?
Right.
Image
what did we just say?
Yeah. They're like, we can't have we don't have the rights to Mr. T.
Right.
And I was just like,
oh, it was because of the rights.
Yeah. I was
I
like,
see.
well, it was in the image that you guys sent me. He's like, where was it? I was like, in the movie called Penitentiary. Like, he was in the background. And they're like, he's in that movie for like 5 minutes. Why
Right.
did they stick him on the posters?
Right.
I don't know. So yeah, we went back and forth on the imagery, but like it was very well receptive. You know, I did a bunch of research on their stuff and,
Yeah.
and saw like previous design work that they had. I was just like, all right, here's my box. I can work inside this.
Yeah.
I can do this and be happy about it.
Do you show them pencil sketches or watercolor or like?
No, I had just bought Procreate.
Okay. Yeah.
And
what a lifesaver.
Man.
This is another podcast we need to have a talk about.
Yeah, game changer. If you're an illustrator,
our next mistress. Every artist's mistress
in my
now.
bag right
Procreate.
Yeah, complete game changer because it's for the most part I worked on it at a coffee shop around the corner. Just took the imagery that they had gave me, pasted all together, multiple through reviews, and then just kind of went out and then submitted it. But
How many revisions did you have to make?
like 4, but mostly just some minor stuff.
Right. Did you rage after like the second revision? Where you like,
No, I usually don't rage.
I'm
until
an
about the
artist,
8th.
damn it, kind of thing? Did you pull that kind of thing, like knocking things off the table? And
I'm not at liberty to say.
yeah, your attorney's over here in the next room. Right? Well, that's really awesome, man. It's a fantastic piece of work. I'm sure we can find it on Instagram all over the place.
Yeah.
It is the Alamo in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Amazing imagery.
Behind the bar.
Yeah. What's the next big project you got working on as we start to close this up?
I'm working on a children's book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actively?
A friend of mine wrote it, and I'm doing the cover illustration for
Is that
it.
noise okay?
That's fine.
Yeah, I'm doing the cover art, and once it gets approved by possibly the publisher, I'll do the inside art too.
Ooh, so you're already working with the publisher.
No, the writer is. He's talking to the publisher.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
you're
So I'm creating a tight but loose image of what he wants, the writer, and then we're going to present it to the publisher, and hopefully they also like it.
Is this a local writer?
Yes. Yeah.
Is it somebody I know?
Joe Yuri. He.
Yeah, Joe Yuri?
Yeah.
Yeah, the musician.
Yeah. He wrote a kid's book.
No kidding.
Yeah. It's called Chiquita Felina and the Grassier Verge, on the Grassier Verge. And it's about this wonderful little cat that goes on an adventure. And so, yeah, lots of cat references, chasing my cat around.
What is up with your cat fetish you have, man? Tell
What are
me
you
about
talking
it.
I got a new cat. I love my cat. I'm a man and I love my cat.
Awesome. So how does that process work? So you've got your concepts. He's already got it written. I'm assuming.
Yeah,
right?
he's got it written. He gave me. We had lots of conversations. I told him, I was like, just give me the points, like bullet points of what you want. You know, he's like Vermont background, very sort of small town feel.
Nice.
The cat, the bindle stick, and a couple other things. I was like, you got it. Let's roll. And then drew a couple of thumbnails, presented it to him. He's like, no. And then a couple more. He's like, no. And then finally, I had sent it to him, and I got tears of joy. He said, so he kind of nailed it, and then we're putting it together. So currently, I'm working on that right now.
Yeah. So it's not going to be self-published. You're going to go after a specific publisher.
Yeah, he's going to go after a publisher, and
Does he have connections there, or is it?
no, it's just his drive.
Yeah.
It's just him driving for what he wants to do.
Awesome.
Which is completely admirable.
Yeah.
He's got tons on his plate right now. He's like running a farm and a bunch of other things, and he's just like,
Wow.
I'm going to write a kid's book, and on top of this, I'm like, okay. I wish I had your energy.
Joe's a good guy, man.
Yeah.
Anything else? You got murals or any new projects? Big scale?
No, I'm actually kind of thinking about doing a solo show. I'm just trying to. I've been working on a bunch of ideas, and now I'm just looking for a venue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. the kitchen.
Sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, listen, man, we're obviously going to have to do a part 2, and I want to pull you in for I want to do a panel.
Yeah.
And I think I might do a series too of different panels where we get in a group of people to talk about different ideas and concepts. So want to do a part 2 on just you, and then have you on for panel 2 if that's okay.
Sure.
Start paying you lots and lots of catnip for your cat, and maybe some Cheddar's whiskey from Max over here.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, man, this has been a blast. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you coming out, and we'll do it again soon.
Sure.
Okay, man. See ya. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the Pencil Pushers Podcast. Follow us on Instagram at the Pencil Pushers Podcast for visual representation of our guest artwork, topics discussed, and anything else that contributes to the show. Be sure to subscribe. Tell a friend. Tell lots and lots of friends. Become a leadhead. And we're out.